Hello, welcome to the Snap UK, our Week 8 review of all things going on in the NFL. Of course, as we're recording this, I think the trade deadline is due in about half an hour. Isn't it? I think, is it due to end 4 p.m. EST?
4 p.m. Eastern time, yeah, which is indeed about half an hour's time.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Whatever time zone we're in. So hopefully we might see some stuff coming through as we go, but we'll see. Be a nice distraction from the election coverage before that goes full.
Hang on, I have
insanity.
Actually got, there is actually an update. AFC East, Patriots acquire slot receiver Isaiah Ford from the Dolphins.
Well,
I saw that come up a few minutes before we started this, and your excitement was about the same as mine. So that's going to do absolutely chuff all for us.
Is this better or worse than your trade for Sanu last season?
That is a wet fart of an announcement, isn't it?
It really is. You've announced some wet farts in your time.
So that's literally
really
the first. I was just scrolling through Twitter and it came up, and I was like, "Oh, well, we might as well mention that whilst we're talking about trades."
Yeah. Well, whilst we are talking trades, Quan Alexander has left the 49ers in exchange for Kiko Alonso and a 5th-round pick to the Saints, isn't it?
That is correct, yeah. I was okay with that. I think Alonso is probably the more talented and he's probably the better player, but he's not been fit for the 1.5 years he's been in San Francisco. So no matter how good you are as a player, if you're not on the field, you're pretty useless. So we lose some of the we gain some cap space for next year. We gain a 5th-round conditional pick, and we gain an all right player who gives away a few too many penalties, but at least he's on the field to do that. So I'm okay with that. And Fred Warner's come on leaps and bounds this year, and last year actually. So I think Quan was like 3rd on the depth chart behind Fred and Dre Greenlaw.
There you go. We'll keep an eye out whilst we're recording for anything else that happens. So should we go into the games? Because there's some good ones this weekend. So we'll start with game of the weekend as such. The undefeated Steelers remain the undefeated Steelers. They beat the Ravens 28-24 in what was quite a tight game in the end. But does anyone want to make an overreaction about Lamar Jackson?
No, sadly Gary's not here to do that. We sat with him doing his overreactions as he flagged him off and then cheered him on simultaneously.
He the ultimate flip-flopping in decisions on Lamar Jackson. He threw a pick and he was the worst quarterback ever, and he'd be found out by every defensive team in the next 2 months. Then he'd throw an absolutely amazing pass or he'd go an absolutely amazing run, and suddenly he was God's gift to quarterbacking once again. I think this was Lamar Jackson probably coming up against arguably the best defense in the league at the moment, and he struggled like every quarterback. I think is going to struggle against this defense. Their pass rush is great. Their linebacking core did a good job. They kept whilst Lamar Jackson had 16 carries, which is a lot for him. He only had 65 yards, which it's 4.1 yards per carry, but actually you normally expect him to break off much longer runs than that. On the whole, he was well bottled up, and his passing woes came back this week. He had a rating of 65.8, 13 completions from 28 attempts, 2 interceptions, 1 for a pick six, and only two touchdowns. So I think he just came up against a really good defense, and Ben Roethlisberger was able to get as much as he needed out of his offense, and the Steelers just squeezed the result.
Yeah, because as well, it's not all doom and gloom for the Ravens. The Ravens were a Lamar fumble from taking a result at the end. It's you look at, I think, Lamar's stats. His 2 worst games are probably this one, and then last year against the Steelers. The Steelers being good on defense and you look at the matchup, it's just not a good matchup. The Steelers.
It's the best possible matchup for the defense of the Steelers because stopping the run is what they do. And let's be fair, like they didn't completely nullify the run, but they nullified the best runner on the team. You can let J.K. Dobbins and Gus the Bus rack up 100-yard games if Lamar is basically going backwards and force him to throw over the top. It's not what he does well. So it's a good matchup for the Steelers. Why would anyone be surprised that Lamar is slightly regressing? He was MVP last year. Who has consecutive MVP seasons? No one.
I mean, to be fair, Mahomes, other than a 4-week injury, probably would have got it again.
But
I mean, he was MVP. Then
seasons, the answer is no, because no one. It's so rare. It's not like in even in basketball where LeBron James is clearly the best player. He very rarely wins it MVP 2 seasons running, and he is
the current NBA MVP who's won it for the 2nd season in a row. Not to
who's that?
Captain the pitcher, Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Who?
Sorry,
Giannis.
Oh right, okay. Well, that shows you how little attention I pay. But
I mean,
if you're telling me that guy is more valuable than LeBron James, I'd say you're probably wrong anyway. But in the NFL, it just doesn't happen because it's impossible to keep up that standard. We'll come to Josh Allen later, but it's the same thing. Like, players are great in spells, then teams figure them out, and that player has to adjust, and he's still young, and I just don't have a problem with it. I don't see the issue. He's still one of the best 6 quarterbacks in the league, playing on a really good team that happened to be in a rough division, playing probably the best team in the AFC. Now, as a rounded team, I'd take the Steelers over anybody.
The defense is awesome. This is only Lamar's 2nd full season. I think and it's 1 bad game. He's been pretty decent for the rest of this season. I saw something on Good Morning Football this morning. Peter Schrager, I think it was saying that he would take Joe Burrows over Lamar Jackson at the moment. I think Joe Burrows is playing brilliantly, but I think there's a massive shout at the moment.
It's a huge shout. That's the overreaction we're looking for. Quite now. Joe Burrow is great, but isn't Lamar's streak that basically they've scored 20 points in every game since he started quarterbacking for them, which is the longest streak in the NFL right now. So,
This was the first time.
To throw scorn on that, you saw what Joe Flacco did when he didn't have that O-line.
Yeah.
Whoa, Lamar doesn't have that O-line anymore.
Ronnie Stanley's a massive loss.
And the right tackles went down injured as well. But Ronnie Stanley was weighed down by his wallet and got injured.
That's harsh. I think, that is a massive loss, but I think it is any quarterback aside from Kyler Murray that could cope with a loss to their offensive line. It's Lamar Jackson, just because of his ability to escape the pocket and run away from danger. If this was a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees losing the left and right tackle, there'd be more concerns there.
Very much so. On the Steelers, I was getting a bit, I don't know, angry with them. I don't know why. I think just because offensively, I find them very boring.
You were getting angry with them, I remember.
Yeah. And I was looking up some stats, and they are one of the least explosive offenses of all time. Of the 350 offenses since I think 2000, they are 1 spot above last year's offense with Doc Hodges. It's but of course Ben is just going to give it away a lot less than Doc Hodges and was it Rudolph?
He's probably also not going to get beaten over the head with his own helmet.
Exactly. But of course
he got rid of one of the best defensive ends out of the division by being an arse. So there is that.
We won't knock it.
But and of course it does help that Big Ben has Claypool, He has Juju. Deontay Washington is suddenly looking really good. But James Conner is back. But yeah, I find the Steelers team quite hard to like. I think I don't know why, but yeah, that's just me.
I think they're not asking him to do that much. I think you hit the nail on the head with the wide receivers he's got now. He doesn't have to throw those long passes anymore. No. He doesn't have to make It doesn't have to make kind of several reads to find a wide receiver. They've got, if you throw Eric Ebron into it, they've got 4 good receivers in Juju Smith-Schuster, Ebron, Claypool, and Deontay Johnson. And that doesn't actually include James Washington, who is decent on his day as well.
Yeah,
one of them is going to get open at some point, so he probably has to make 1-2 reads, get the ball out of his hand very quickly. I think this season is the fastest he's thrown the ball out of his entire career, and that's because there's so many options that someone's going to be open, and he's doing just enough to beat pretty much any team or every team at the moment.
Every team at the moment, yeah. No, it's just me.
It's just your hatred of Ben.
I think my hatred of Ben, but I can't really complain. They are still undefeated, but so they are the only undefeated team in the league. Should we move on to the next game, which was disappointing 37-27 loss for the 49ers against divisional rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. And it's not good news coming out of this game, is it? You've lost Kittle for IR.
8 weeks, I think he's going to be out for. Yeah.
And Jimmy G's out for at least
multiple weeks. Yeah.
Multiple weeks. But, he'll be off into IR as well for this season. It's not good, is it? I mean, last week I was quite high on the NFC West, thinking, I can see, 3 teams getting out of this. And coming out of this
we talked about 4 teams, didn't we?
Yeah. I'm struggling now, but I don't know if I'm just going off one bad performance.
Well, there is that. I think the 37-27 scoreline flatters us somewhat.
Yeah.
We scored 20 points in the fourth quarter when Seattle obviously took their foot off the gas. Like injuries, every year it seems injuries are just getting us. But I don't really know. I don't know what to say about that because a couple of years back we changed our athletic department and our sports science department. That just doesn't seem to have an effect. We got more injuries. I think every 49er fan at the moment is literally watching Twitter, waiting to see if we can get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. And obviously, we're not going to get rid of him now because he's injured. But that's the general buzz from the 49er fandom, is that we've all kind of had enough of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I have after last week. He's not. I watched one of the Colin Cowherd clips from earlier today, and he mentioned that there's 3 things that's wrong with Garoppolo. He's not consistent. He'll have one game, i.e. the last week or 2, where he's been great, and then he'll have another couple of games where he's been terrible. And even before he got injured, he was distinctly below average. That's being nice. So he's not consistent. I don't think Kyle Shanahan has faith in him, hence the probably over-reliance on the run game. And yeah, it's still working well, but you've got to look at our playoff run last year, where in the games against Vikings and the Packers, we barely threw the ball at all. And he can't stay on the field. This is his second injury this year. He missed pretty much his entire first full season because he was injured. He was also injured when he was with the Pats, when he got a chance to replace Brady. So if he can't be on the field and he's not consistent and the coach hasn't got faith in him, I think they really have to look to move on, unfortunately. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's got the team around him, obviously. But it's not working as him as quarterback at the 49ers.
Yeah, no, it's I'm just looking at it as a contract. And, I mean, if you did find an option and wanted to dump him, you could do it quite cheaply from this summer. But it's just not working, and the run game is fine, but your running backs are going down like flies, quite frankly. Because did Hasty get injured this week as well?
He went off. He went off for a period of time, and Tevin Coleman was just coming back from injury reserve. I don't think he's fully fit.
McKinnon doesn't look like he's a runner. He's a catching back, but I think he lost yards. I think, didn't he? Over the game. He
did. He had 3 carries for -1 yard. I think there's going to be options in the summer when it comes to quarterback. I think there's going to be Sam Darnold is one that's been bounded around. Kyle Shanahan's got a good relationship with Matt Ryan at the Falcons. If they decide to have a fire sale, there could be an option there. Or we can make a move in the draft and pick up one of the top 3 quarterbacks that way. But
there is also a lifelong fan of the 49ers who's had a number 1 draft pick going underneath him on the depth chart. A number 1 first round pick.
There is. I've seen that. I've also seen that rumor across a number of 49ers Instagram posts. I think it's a long shot, and if anyone hasn't figured it out yet, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Now, if it happened, I would be jumping up and down for joy. I mean, Aaron Rodgers with that running game, even with those receivers, I think Brandon Ayuk is the one highlight from Sunday's game. Coupled with a decent defense, suddenly you've got a full team there, haven't you? I think if you look at the 49ers team, the only thing you are missing is a quality quarterback. Because I think with Shanahan's play scheme, you don't need a big-bodied red zone threat. Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and whatever running back is fit from one week to another gets the job done.
Yeah. Let's not cast aspersions on the Seahawks. They were very good this weekend, and DK Metcalf had a fantastic game, didn't he?
Bloody awesome, isn't he?
Do you remember we used to doubt? He can only run in a straight line because that's what the scout report said.
Shanahan compared him to Julio Jones on his press conference at the end of the game. And I think that's a really good comparison because, they're both big, fast, powerful receivers. And the thing with Seattle is, Russell Wilson is playing so well at the moment. He's still on course to be MVP. But also, you can't double team DK Metcalf because then Tyler Lockett's free. And you can't do that to Tyler Lockett because then DK Metcalf's free. And even if somehow you manage to shut both of them, actually David Moore is a decent receiver for depth, and they've got Greg Olsen at a tight end who, he's got a history of being pretty decent. So if only Seattle had a defense, because let's face it, Nick Mullins came in and he's got a quarterback rating of 128 and has two touchdowns. And a lot of that was in garbage time, but if you can't defend against Nick Mullins and a banged-up 49ers team, then there's probably a bit of an issue there. Well, we know there's an issue there. It's just a big issue.
Although in the first half, Wagner was just a boss, wasn't he? He's just incredible. It's the probably only remaining member of the Legion of Boom, but what a player he is.
I think he might have taken issue from all the praise that Fred Warner's had recently. And kind of said, "Hang on, there's another middle linebacker in the NFC West who ain't bad." And he showed up.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Unless anyone's got anything else to add, because it wasn't particularly much of a game, sadly. I've only mentioned because the Seahawks are doing so well. Bills 24, Pats 21.
Go on, Griff. I've had my depressing 5 minutes. You go for it.
Bills get the win, but in the Pats fumble away a chance for overtime with 30 seconds to go, trying to use up more clock. And Yeah, it's all a bit doom and gloom, seemingly over in
I don't think it is.
In the media portrayal of New England, but
that's because the media want winning teams to be winning teams, so they can write good stories about how Bill Belichick is impervious to losing players. He's not. He's come out today and said, "Look, we sold out to win 3 Super Bowls, and now we've got to take it on the chin for a year or two while we rebuild." And that's what I said to you last week. Like, you cannot sustain that in this league. We have said every year that we've done this, how are they doing this again? How is it possible that no one else can do this? Eventually, that comes to an end. I think I said the season would be 6-10, and at best 8-8. I think that 6-10 looks hopeful now, but ultimately we should have beaten the Bills. And I sat with you guys and said we should kick the field goal and go for overtime because Cam will turn the ball over. And before the words had finished tumbling out of my face, the ball was on the floor and he was pulling that, "Oh man, I can't believe that's happened to me again," expression that he does. And I think the only thing we learned in this game were 2 things. The Bills aren't quite as good as everyone made them out to be. And Cam Newton isn't getting a contract extension. No. Because I think it might be done. And I think New England's biggest problem is Jarrett Stidham isn't the answer. So they can rebuild and draft and get that massive salary cap window that they're going to get next season. But they don't have a quarterback answer. I don't think they'll bring Cam back. We've seen nothing out of Stidham to make you think he's the answer. We know Brian Hoyer isn't the answer. And we're probably not going to be bad enough to be picking one of the best 2 quarterbacks. So what do you do? Because I think they really were hoping for big things out of Stidham, and it isn't there. So that is my only gripe. The rest of it, I'm okay with. You got to ride through a couple of bad seasons after you've been that good for that long. You've got no choice.
I imagine working with Belichick is a draw, but for offensive players, do you think it's going to be harder to draw them now you don't have Brady? Because I think to play with Brady, like Antonio Brown, I think joined because to play with Brady. Is that going to be hard to bring in players through free agency?
I don't know. If you find players that have had good careers but haven't actually won anything, a lot of them want to win. So yes, they can go and play with Brady at the Bucs and they might win, or they can come and play at the Patriots and they might win. I don't think it actually diminishes the draw. It might change which players look at it which way. Clearly, players like Brady and Gronk had enough of the regime, and they want to play in a slightly different, freer manner. But some players just want to try and win before their careers are over, and I think we're going to need a couple of those players. But like I say, I don't get it. Some of us were sitting here last week saying, "Oh, Bill's a terrible GM, and maybe that's the problem. Perhaps he'll retire." No, it's fine. Like, he's not great at drafting some players, but defensively, we've drafted fine. Like, yeah, he's old, but he's still the best coach in the league. He's still the best coach in the league. He absolutely is. I don't think there is a doubt. I think there are some really good young coaches. We've just been talking about Kyle Shanahan, who's a really good coach. But I don't think there's another coach in the league that would get any more out of what's happening in New England at the moment. And I think he's got at least 2 seasons where we could be this bad before you need to say, we want to see some progress. So I think I've just got to strap in for the long run. You offered very kindly for me to switch allegiances to the Jets or the Jags, and I told you to stick it because I'd rather ride out my own big pile of crap than take on someone else's. And I just think that's the way it's got to be. Moving on to the Bills, a bit like we were saying with Lamar, Josh Allen, same draft class, people have figured him out a bit, and it'll take him a few games to get right. Also, with these quarterbacks from that draft class, the coaches have taken the stabilizers off a little bit, and they're letting them get on with it while they concentrate on other things. And sometimes those players are not ready, or they still require a little bit of coaching. I have no problem with the fact that either of them have regressed. And I still think you win more games than you lose with both of those quarterbacks. The Bills shouldn't have won this game, but they did. How many years have we talked about New England doing that in that division? They shouldn't have won that game, but they did. So you just got to hand it to the Bills.
It's a mark of a good team, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's still not enough time to kind of. I don't want to make any sweeping statements with this. You can't say that the shine's coming off the apple with Belichick and the Patriots because what's it been? Week 8.
Yeah.
It's week 8, and also you can't say Josh Allen is regressing. He got picked off by the Defensive Player of the Year last season.
Yeah,
there's no shame in that.
And I'm not sure.
Point.
I'm not sure as well. Like his performances aren't as good as last year, but I don't know if it's all on Allen. I think the play calling isn't playing to his strengths, and they seem to be seemingly willing to run him up the middle a lot of the time, which I don't think is his strength. But yeah, they'll be hopefully they'll be in the playoffs and he can sort of remove that monkey off his back from the Houston game where it all just went wrong.
Speaking of the playoffs, only 2 other teams have ever started 6-2, but with a negative point differential through the first 8 games. That was the Bears in '91 and the Lions in 1945, and neither of them managed to win a playoff game when they got to the postseason. So the negative point differential is the real blemish on the Bills. That's it.
They have moved away from being a very defensive team. Like I think the last 2 years, they've lent heavily on the defense, whilst Josh Allen's been maturing, for want of a better word. This year, it seems like they have been. They started off the season scoring quite a few points. Josh Allen playing well. He's obviously got a good connection with Stephon Diggs, who I think had another good game on Sunday. But the defense, I think, has fallen off a little bit this year. Like I don't think it's quite as potent as it has been. Their pass rush isn't as good as it was. They can't find anyone to play, opposite Tre'Davious White, who is an awesome cornerback, but he can't do it all by himself, right? So I think, Griff, you mentioned that perhaps kind of the coaches are taking their eye off the quarterback a little bit and letting him get on with it. I don't think that's such a bad thing. The defense needs a bit of tinkering and it needs them to kind of have a bit more focus there and let Josh Allen carry on maturing, because he's still winning games. Like, okay, he's not played brilliantly the last 2 weeks, but he's still beaten his 2 division rivals, which goes a long way to getting you into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it probably won't be good for the point differential this coming weekend, but it could be a hell of a laugh because they play the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good week for Allen to get back on form, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Patriots go to their other divisional rival, the Bills, on Monday night. Jets. Sorry, it's got Bills in the brain. Yeah, Jets.
Come back to me next week when we lose that game, and you'll find I'm talking in a different manner. Because if we don't stomp the Jets, I will tell you now, I shall be chuffing disappointed.
It's going to be. You've got the thing I like about the Bills' offense is they've got rid of excuses, right? Because the last 2 seasons, it's been just Josh Allen's great. Just imagine what he could do with a receiver. He's got a few now. We've got decent options. Just imagine what he could do with a tight end. He's got a decent enough tight end. Just imagine what he could do with a decent O-line. The O-line's okay.
Yeah, line's pretty good.
Real kind of. Just imagine what Josh Allen could do with. Excuse in Buffalo anymore. So
they've drafted well and brought in some good options on free agency, which is sadly the stuff that the Pats haven't done very well for the last few years. But the Bills not quite there, it seems. But we shall move on because it's. I mean, it is fun to slag the Pats off every week, but not as easy this week.
Just a quick bit of, trade non-news. I think it was highly touted that the Texans would be trading wide receiver Will Fuller to the Packers. Apparently, that is not happening because they can't agree on a trade deal. So Will Fuller gets to stay in Austin.
Lucky him,
isn't it?
I mean, let's be honest. That's probably going to be better because if Aaron Rodgers had a receiver, I'm not saying he's an elite receiver. If Aaron Rodgers has a decent receiver who's not Devontae Adams, he'll pass out in shock. And the Texans doing something stupid with trade isn't news,
Yeah, no, but there was rumours that, but I think as well because the Texans need to bring in some draft capital for whoever's going to be their new coach. But
Yeah,
let's stick in the AFC East, because we're going to do I think the manner, the difference in victory was the shocking thing. 28-17, Dolphins over the Rams. The Rams remain 4-0 against the NFC East this year, but unfortunately 3-0 against 0-3 against everyone else. So Tua's first start, we didn't really see much of him, did we?
Didn't really need to, did we?
Didn't really need to, no. The defense, Flores just was all over the Rams, quite frankly.
Let's remember, Flores is the defensive coordinator who led New England to that Super Bowl against the Rams and basically shut them out. So he's obviously got McVay's number because he absolutely dominated, to your point. The Rams either had a really off day or that Miami Dolphins defense had a really good day. Like, you look at some of the stats, total plays, the Rams had 92 plays to the Dolphins 48. Total yards, 471 yards for the Rams to 145 for the Dolphins. First downs, well, I've lost that now. Well, passing first downs for the Rams, 19-5 to the Dolphins. Ridiculous. Like first downs, LA Rams 31, Dolphins 8. Time and possession 36, Dolphins 23. It's the biggest lopsided stat sheet I think I've seen for a long time, except the most important stat, which is Dolphins 28, Rams 17.
Yeah. They just they never blitzed. They just totally confused Goff, and it seems to work quite well because bless him. He had one of those games that Jared Goff can have. I think a lot of people were sort of hoping for to see a bit of Tua, but that will come. I'm sure
it will come. I think was it his first play. He took a pretty big sack from Aaron Donald. It's like, this could be tough for the guy. But after that, he was fine. He wasn't he threw for 93 yards and a touchdown. But like I said, he didn't have to do anything. There was a good run back from a punt as well, wasn't there, for a touchdown?
We're 40 minutes and 30 seconds into our Week 8 review. Mark this one up. I don't think Tua is going to be that good, and I think he's going to give the ball away a lot. And I think they might win more games with Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm not sure he is ready. I think they're just playing him because they need to see if he's any good.
Of course
I'm not sure. I'm not sure he's ready, and he's got 93 yards. Well, like the defensive effort from the Rams wasn't that good. I thought he was massively underwhelming considering how well Fitzpatrick has played, and he's just been thrown in so they can say yes or no, which is fine. But and maybe next year he'll be better because they usually are. But I think it could be really disappointing second half of the season for the Dolphins because I'm not sure he is ready. They wouldn't have won this game without the defence. If it had been on his shoulders, they'd have got hammered.
Well, of course.
I'm going to give you the counter argument to this, and I'm going to go against you just for podcast
argumentative.
Just because Gary's not here.
Yeah, I'm going to be Gary this week. I'm going to say that Tua plays in the playoffs within the next 2 seasons and wins a playoff game. And I will bet you 10 English pounds that will happen.
I'll take that because even if they make the playoffs, I don't think they'd be good enough to win. But I'll take that. I think that's fair. I'm certainly not saying he won't be a long-term good player. I think he is one of those guys I really think should have sat for his first year. And they're just doing it because now in the modern world, nobody gets to sit.
I think
because it worked for Jared Goff on Sunday, didn't it?
Yeah. I think that there's a couple of things to unpack there, Griff. I think you're right. I don't think he will be as good as what Ryan Fitzpatrick could be this year. I will say, though, that the Dolphins are going to have a high draft pick. Even if they do well, they've still got the Texans' first-round pick, and the Texans are going to effectively giving them a top 10 pick. I think they have to see what Tua has this year to be able to make a decision about, okay, do we have to draft a quarterback next year, like a high quarterback next year? What have we got in Tua? Is he the guy? From everything I've heard in terms of, what he's doing behind the scenes is he's a very studious quarterback. He's there. He's helping to lead the team. He's beginning to pick up. I don't think you expect him to be brilliant in year one, coming off the injury that he had whilst he was at college. I think they just want to know: is he fit? Is he going to mess us around, a la kind of Dwayne Haskins behind the scenes? Is he going to be a studious? Is he going to work hard? Is he going to be a leader in the team moving forward? And I think they know they're not going to go to the playoffs this year. I think they're realistic enough to know that. They know they're in a rebuilding phase. I think they just want to know what they've got in Tua, and I think they're using the best part of the second half of this season to figure that out. And then that will determine what their draft strategy is going into 2021.
This is what we call the Josh Rosen effect, because the Cardinals are so much better for binning him off after 1 year.
Exactly. If Tua is another Josh Rosen, they know that they have to use what is likely to be a top 10, if not a top 5 pick, to try and get Justin Fields or Trey Lance, because they're not going to have the number 1 pick because Jets have got that sewn up. But if he is good, they can go after a decent wide receiver. Lamar Chase is going to be there for them. Or they can pick up a decent running back like Travis Etienne at LSU. It's been fucking amazing this year, the last couple of years. And they could use a new running back. They've literally just traded for DeAndre Washington, the Chiefs running back. So that they obviously need help there because he's a complete nobody. So I think
he was a good pickup in fantasy when everyone else was on bye.
Yeah,
he would get you 3 points that you needed.
that whole 3 points. So I think that he's not going to be as good as what Fitzpatrick could be. But Dolphins are playing a long game, and I think they're being quite sensible for a change.
I think if you have a Favre, a person who is going to be there next year, like even Mahomes and Alex Smith, you had this idea that Smith would be there, that even though he wasn't. I think because Fitzpatrick is gone in the summer, because he's gone. I think you sort of have to give Tua half the season. Because why not?
Where does Fitzpatrick pick up his bindle and move to this time?
Oh, I don't know. Who knows? But it's just whilst you've got that, and Fitzpatrick is probably the ideal person to be there, and you've got to give him a go, and he's got to be the person, and to help him, he needs to be able to see. But yeah, I think and it may cost them a playoff place because they may have been in fight for a wild card if they were. Because
they know they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's all very well getting into the playoffs, but I'm sure any Dolphins fan would swap being in the playoffs this year for going deep in the playoffs over the next couple of years.
Yeah, but no, it's. I mean, we could. We could fight with Fitzpatrick as we do every year.
Griff just loves Fitzpatrick. He has a massive hard on for him.
It will be a sad day when he's no longer an NFL quarterback.
Oh God, yeah. No. Oh God, I miss him so much. I'll miss him so much. Okay, we're going back to the AFC East here. Chiefs.
It's a short review. This one. Let's catch some time up on the podcast.
Chiefs 35.
Patrick Mahomes was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm running out of things to say. They need to trade Darnold to let him go, but they won't. It angers me that a team is this bad. Like, they're not quite as funny as the terrible Browns when the
They're
Browns
not, are they?
Team, but they're playing worse than that Browns team. Their actual point differential is worse. and they don't seem to be copping enough flack for it, and it annoys me.
I think they're copping a fair bit of flack for it. I
But
think
it's not enough because there isn't enough.
No, you're probably right there.
I think they're saved by having no fans. I think if they were being booed every week, I think it might force their hand. But yeah,
maybe. But I think that obviously they know behind the scenes. They know that Gase has gone after this year. They know they're rebuilding for next year. Leave it at that.
It's different to the Browns, though, isn't it? Because with the Browns, you always have this kind of they're purposely sucking because they're going to have this many draft picks. They've got this much in the first round. This is what they're going to do with it. You watch the Jets and think, no, they're not trying to suck. They just suck.
Yeah.
This isn't a forced thing. This isn't we're trying to be bad so we can rebuild.
Let me give you the only stat you needed from this game so we can move on. 32 of Adam Gase's 42 career losses as a head coach have been by 10 or more points. He doesn't coach close games. Like, they are terrible under his coaching. It is poor. Move on.
No. Can we just mention the Patrick Mahomes underarm throw for the touchdown?
Oh,
just delightful. It is, and to your point, Griff, it's like you run out of superlatives for Patrick Mahomes, like because he can literally do everything.
Yeah,
he scored more. He got more touchdown passes this game than the Jets in 8 weeks.
Yep,
which is phenomenal. Love that so much.
Has Darnold not thrown a touchdown in 3 weeks now?
He didn't play 2 of them games.
Yeah, no, but like that in the 3 weeks he's played.
Also,
they have to let him leave. It's just killing him.
I feel sorry for him. But also, out of everyone on the field, the most expensive player that the Jets were paying was
Le'Veon Bell.
Le'Veon Bell, playing for the Chiefs, and he didn't have a great game, but he was the one that took home all the cash from the Jets. So fair play to him.
I did the first, I think one of the first touchdown by Hardman. The first person who obviously bust a gut to get there to celebrate in the end zone with him was Bell.
Yeah.
For the Jets, they have traded their linebacker to the Steelers, so he goes from a 0-8 team to a 7-0
team.
Yeah, so lucky him. But they're just even in modern times when a lot of teams have sucked, the Jets are still surprisingly bad. That's how bad they are. That's convenient
segue.
The Stella Artois of teams, aren't they? You know, they're reassuringly bad.
Yeah,
it's a convenient segue to the Browns game, isn't it?
And the Raiders.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, suck. Yeah.
The Jets suck, and the weather was blowy in Cleveland. But it was gale winds, hail at one point.
I'm not denying that, John, but that segue was terrible.
Wasn't he a running back for the Bears, gale winds?
Yeah. The Jets are the new Browns, and the Browns are
still the Browns.
Still the Browns. They brown it up every so often.
Still got a winning record though. They're still 5-3.
There's nothing worse than browning it up.
No.
Is that Paul?
We're reverting back to the wet fart argument earlier.
But 16-6 against in a loss against the Raiders. Not much really to say about this game because it was just awful conditions, really.
Yeah, this was a game that the Browns really needed Nick Chubb because Kareem Hunt's a decent running back, but he's a pass catching running back. Like they needed a bruising running back just to keep ploughing it up the middle, which the Raiders had in Josh Jacobs, who had an awesome game, 31 carries, 128 yards. That's what both teams needed. One team had it, one team didn't. The one team that had it won.
Yeah. Carr already threw for just over 100 yards, and I think one throwing touchdown to Renfro. But there's not really much to say about this game except a brilliant kick.
The only thing you can sign off with is how inconsistent the Browns are. They've either scored 32 or more, or 7 or less. in each game this season. Like,
yeah.
The swing is phenomenal. 6, 35, 34, 49, 32, 7, 37, 6. It's crazy. Like, I really like what Kevin Stefanski. I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think the future in Cleveland is actually really good. We should touch on the fact that there's no way OBJ is there next season. It's just not going to happen.
No.
Definitely gone. I think that's fine. I don't think they're any worse off without him. But man, as a team to try and pick each week, you got no chance. They're so wildly inconsistent. They could lose 3 on the bounce and then win 3 by 20 points or more against any team.
Yep. Yeah. No, there's some wildly inconsistent teams this year, and the Browns are possibly the zenith of that.
But if you'd have offered any Browns fan their record in week 8 that they have now, they'd have taken it all day.
There are Browns fans?
Apparently so, yeah.
Next week, the Jets have still got fans.
Barely, isn't it? Oh God, I mean,
it's just Giants fans turning up on the wrong night.
Right, I've just noticed on the running order, this is like the hard luck end of the first part of the podcast, isn't it? Because now you're going to tell us we've got to talk about Bengals Titans, and for the first time in a long time, the Bengals actually look like a football team.
Yeah,
they really did.
Yeah, 31-20 Bengals to Titans. Titans.
What did this say more about? Did it say more about Cincinnati or more about Tennessee?
To me,
probably
Tennessee.
More about Tennessee's defense and their inability to get to the quarterback. Like the Bengals' offensive line has been bad all year. And I think on Sunday's game, like, they had 4 new starters in the offensive line, so it should be even worse. But even with like Jadeveon Clowney in the lineup, they can't get to the quarterback. They had no sacks against this Bengals team. They had no sacks against this Bengals team who is a good rookie, but still a rookie quarterback. I mean, it's.
I want to give you 2 amazing Bengals stats, and then I'll sit back and let you tear the Titans apart. So this is the first time the Bengals defeated a team that entered with a winning record in their game since week 5 of 2018, so over 2 years. And since 2013, the Bengals are 11-1-1, where Giovanni Bernard has 15 or more rushing attempts. And
this is something I wanted to bring up.
That's fantastic. He's playing just like Joe Mixon. It's like there's no difference.
No, he's playing different to Joe Mixon. That's the thing about Giovanni Bernard.
Go
on. They stick Mixon through the middle. With Bernard, there's more plan, there's more craft to what he does. And actually, they're a better team with Giovanni Bernard than Mixon. And I'm not saying Bernard is better than Mixon. I'm just saying that the way the Bengals plan their offense is better when they have to consider Bernard than if they just basically stick it in Mixon's hands and make him try and run through a defensive line.
Yeah.
I think there's. Yeah, I mean, as well, Bernard has a better moustache. Let's not go not much beyond that.
He's been there at the start of 2013, and his total rushing yards for the Bengals is 3,500 yards in 7 seasons. But he's only started 22 games in that time. Like, he's never been the lead back.
Yeah.
Ever. It's never been a thing. And yet, whenever we've seen him, he's always been like, he's quite impressive. Oh, he's doing a good job.
He is a decent backup, yeah.
Makes me question his ambition.
Well, his ambition clearly is to work in pornography. Have you seen the moustache?
It's beautiful.
As well as the running back, like T. Higgins is just getting better each week, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, AJ Green's gone next year without a doubt, because T. Higgins is the clone of AJ Higgins to look at, and he's playing as well as what AJ Green was when he was in his pomp. That connection between Joe Burrow and Higgins over the next couple of years is one to watch out for when it comes to both generally the NFL, but also when it comes to fantasy as well.
Yeah, and with Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate, they have quite a sort of, I don't know if it's underrated wide receiver core, but they sort of fly under the radar.
It's
And
solid,
actually,
isn't it? It's not spectacular. I mean, I think T. Higgins could be spectacular, but I think beneath that, it's a solid wide receiver core. And we said it a couple of times for the last few weeks that they'll go into the draft and they'll strengthen the offensive line, they'll strengthen the defense, and gradually the team will evolve around Joe Burrow. I do have high hopes. I know they're only 2-5 at the moment, but they've lost a lot, 2-5-1. Sorry, they've lost some close games, and I think next year with a bit more experience, a couple more extra players, adding a bit of quality, they'll be decent.
And then they'll Bengals it up because that's what they always do. They're a snake bit franchise. They can have the best young quarterback in the league, and they'll still manage to balls it up. So
I hope they don't.
Forward to that collapse in a couple of years.
Well, as well, it's nice to see Samajay P. Ryan.
Is it
back? I don't know. It's just it's just nice to hear people confused over how to pronounce his surname, isn't it? Because it's just never how you expect it to be pronounced.
Is it definitely P. Ryan?
It is definitely P. Ryan, yeah.
Okay.
And we should stick with that. And I know what you mean. He's a podcast favourite from years gone by.
Yeah.
Hang on. Isn't it a different P. Ryan? Aren't there? There are. You're
thinking of Michael P. Ryan at the Jets, and you should never be thinking of Michael P. Ryan.
That's the other P. Ryan.
Yeah.
So
I've never heard of the other P. Ryan. I always thought it was just the former football team playing Samaji Perine.
Yeah. Well, there's Samajay P. Ryan and there's LaMichael Perine.
Yeah. And they're cousins, by the way.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, apparently so.
On the other side, just wasn't much really. Like they're obviously going to stick the ball in Derrick Henry's hand and make him run it through the middle, but 112 yards and a touchdown. Corey Davis, good stats from him. 112.
Great day. The offense is fine. They don't have a pass rush. They just don't have a pass rush. That's it. So good quarterbacks will find them out. And what did they do to try and boost their pass rush? They added Jadeveon Clowney. And what's the one thing he doesn't do?
Sacks. He doesn't get sacks.
He does everything else, but he doesn't sack the quarterback. So by himself is not enough of an addition to a team that lost other players.
Could
I'm
they
not
do
sure Harold Landry's really pulling his weight this season. That's the other thing. And Malcolm Butler, is he that good?
Was he
a number one cornerback? No.
My question is, could Vrabel use a defensive coordinator? Because he doesn't have one. He's calling defensive plays in his own. I think he spent 1 year as a defense. I know he's got history in playing the game, but he's not really got history as a defensive coordinator. I think 1 year.
You're probably right.
I think that's a fair shout. I think we've seen lots of head coaches try and do a dual role of head coach and coordinator, and I think very few pull it off successfully. Even Belichick isn't a defensive play caller, or he hasn't been recently with Patricia and Brian Flores. I think he might be now, actually, which might say something about
at the moment, because they lost a lot of staff.
Yeah.
I think that's a very fair point. I really like what Vrabel is doing. I think it's excellent, but it's a bit like the Bills. Like, this team was building on its defense, and now they've come to actually lean on it. It's not as good as we thought.
Yeah, completely agree. If they had a good defense, this team would almost be unstoppable with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill passable as a quarterback.
They'll still be his
biggest fan. I mean, they're in a terrible division, so they'll still go to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to a ridiculous game. Broncos 31, Chargers 30. I fell asleep for a little bit. I think, Michael, you said you did.
I did the same. I was watching the game, and then I wasn't watching it anymore because I was asleep. And I thought, as I was drifting off, I am pleased for Justin Herbert. I really like what this team is doing. As much as I hate the fact they left San Diego, I really like the Chargers. What they're doing is growing on me. And then I woke up 40 minutes later as the Broncos were celebrating what could only be described as an unlikely victory. Apart from, of course, they lost because they're the Chargers.
Yeah.
It's poor coaching. To have 16-point leads, they have lost those 4 times this season. Now, they still win one of those games, but they've lost 3 games where they led by 16 points. That's poor coaching.
The only 2 teams they beat in this year are the Bengals in the first game of the season, and the Jaguars.
Yeah. So, the 4 of us could have beaten them. They haven't done anything with... I mean, I haven't decided whether Burrows or Herbert is the better of the 2 rookie quarterbacks yet, but whichever way you look at it, these 2 rookies are... Do you remember when Wentz and Goff both came out and we thought, these are 2 stars, and Goff had to wait a little while before he played, but, you'd say that draft, they both had their ups and downs, but that's a good pair of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Burrow and Herbert are going to surpass that as a pair. So it doesn't matter which one is better; they'll both be very good. But the coaching is just infuriating, and I'm not sure that Anthony Lynn gets enough criticism.
Well, I was going to ask that. Like we talk about coaches on the hot seat a lot. Dan Quinn back in the day. We've mentioned Adam Gase, who's gone. Matt Patricia, we talk about as being poor. We very rarely mention Anthony Lynn. And I kind of think that if this carries on, you've got a rookie quarterback, a cheap quarterback who's playing above kind of where he should be in terms of his level of skill. I think the hierarchy with the Chargers have got to look at that. Okay, we've got 4 years left on his contract where he's not being paid top rate. We're probably going to have to pay him after another 2 years because most of them get paid after the 3rd year. We've got some decent talent on this roster. This isn't a roster with no talent on. There are a lot of good players on this roster. Maybe there needs some tweaks to the offensive line, but they've got 2 good wide receivers. They've got a good tight end. The defense, if Derwin James gets fit and stays fit, that's a really good defense. They have to look at Anthony Lynn and go, this is the weak link. We need someone who can lead this team to winning games. Because Griff's right. You can't lose leads like that every single week. You're not going to keep your job.
In 2018, when the Chargers under Anthony Lynn went 12-4, we thought, hey, this is excellent. Not only is it nice to see the Chargers doing well, but you've got a minority coach who's come in, he's taken the team 9-7, 12-4. Everything is rosy. They're getting the best out of Melvin Gordon. They were getting the best out of Phillip Rivers. And then last year, it all started to tumble. They went 5-11. He clearly didn't get on with Phillip Rivers. Melvin Gordon is his own separate thing, but you get the feeling that Anthony Lynn has his favourites, let's say, and it's very easy for a player to fall outside of that. And what I'm getting at is, look, they're not that far removed from 2 winning seasons, but this is very quickly looking like being back-to-back losing seasons, and yet you want to get someone in who you think is going to get the best out of Herbert's rookie contract, build players around that, and use it. I'm not saying he should be on the hot seat right now. I'm just saying I don't think he's getting enough criticism.
I think he should be on the hot seat. I absolutely think he should be on the hot seat. Yeah, he had a good season a couple of seasons ago, but there is, like I said, there's so much talent on this roster. This roster should not be 2-5. Like they shouldn't be losing games like that.
I think every Monday how good Justin Herbert has played, and if you look at stats, they're excellent. They are so good. You would never think they were rookie stats.
No, exactly.
But they're not winning, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. And to have led all those games by 16 or more points, and to have lost 3, you can only look in one place.
Exactly.
I think Dame Vera Lynn would do a better job.
Well, there's a nice English reference.
We should say, though, that fair play to Denver, because Vic Fangio is another one who I don't think gets enough criticism for just not being... I don't think he's a head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator who's ended up with a head coaching job. But, Drew Lock has these occasional games where he looks like an NFL starter. I don't think he is. I really don't think he's going to be anybody's answer. But he's doing okay. And in games like this where you're playing badly coached opposition, he will give you enough to win games. That's the best I can say for the Broncos right now. 26 of 41, 248 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. That's good stats for any reasonable quarterback. It's just that next week he won't do that.
Yeah, it's solid, isn't it? How like the last play of the game when KJ Hamler? Yeah, KJ Hamler. Sorry, caught that ball for a touchdown, and quite clearly was in bounds, and the officials didn't spot it and kind of ruled it out. And it was like there've been a couple of play calls this week where the officials have just been almost blind, and I'm sat here in the UK several thousand miles away, and I don't think I needed a TV to say that KJ Hamler got his arse down in the touchdown area and clearly had the ball. Sometimes I think they over rely a little bit on TV. I think the same when it comes to other sports in rugby as well. I think they rely too much on technology, and it's like he was clearly in bounds and he clearly had the ball. I just don't understand how they missed that.
I think now with the prevalence of technology, they just daren't take the chance of getting criticised for not using it. That's all it is.
I think it makes contentious decisions easier for them to sort of just rely on, making the easy call and then just getting someone else to decide for them. But yeah, that was seemingly an obvious one. I think there was a couple more this weekend that I can't remember. But yeah, no, it's not good. But we're going to take a break. And
before you do, I'd like an answer on this one. Philip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon, which one should be playing and which one should not be playing?
Every week should start.
Both. You can't. Their styles contrast.
Yeah.
Why not use both?
Because they had 2 net rushing yards in the first half.
Well, yeah, but in the second half,
they had lots more. They had 106.
Clearly looks like the better player right now for me.
Well,
clearly, and he was brilliant.
He's a different player.
Yeah, it's pick your poison. Like Philip Lindsay is that kind of. He's been described as a jitterbug of a running back. You're not going to rely on him to run through the tackles. You can get that from Melvin Gordon. So if you've got that option to flex your offense based on the defense you're playing, then I think that's a positive. You keep them both and you use one week and one the other. Screws us up playing fantasy football, but that's not what they care about.
Well, neither of them is Royce Freeman. That's the problem.
That's definitely the problem.
If
CJ Anderson, none of them are CJ Anderson.
If you let me pick one of those two, then easy decision. But yeah,
full
address
title.
him by his proper title.
Super Bowl winning 1,000-yard rushing CJ Anderson.
Yes. Double Super Bowl playing, 1 Super Bowl winning, multiple 1,000-yard rusher.
Now
Cornelius Anderson.
Well, on that note, we'll now take a break and we'll be back with the rest of the games. Okay, welcome back to part 2, and we are straight in with what could be one of the most disappointing performances of the weekend. Packers 22, Vikings 28, and Dalvin Cook, that is the performance of the weekend, admittedly against what we could all see coming against the worst rush defense in the league. But 4 touchdowns, 200 yards. They only let Kirk Cousins throw for 160 yards. It's what the Vikings should be doing.
What Mike Zimmer wants to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to throw the ball. Mike Zimmer never, ever wants to throw the ball.
But yeah, for the Packers, it was, just well, they and the Titans are in a sort of similar weekend, really, where they're, I think they would have expected a lot more from this, but it just wasn't.
They were exposed a little bit. Their key weakness was picked on by a poor matchup for them. And so they lose a game in what looks like bad fashion. But there's no need to hit the panic button. I mean, it's... I don't necessarily think that if they played again tomorrow, you'd get the same result, because I don't think the Vikings can be this good every week. They've got enough talent to win some games. They were bound to win 1 or 2 games that we didn't think they would. We shouldn't be surprised. The Vikings are 2-5. Like, we shouldn't... This amount of talent should have more respect than it does. So, bad look for the Packers, but not the end of the world. Dalvin Cook, though, on course to break LaDainian Tomlinson's season touchdown record for rushing touchdowns if he keeps up his current rate. And he missed a game this season.
If he stays fit.
And that is always the knock on him. So we wait and see on that front. But my word, what a performance that was. And on the other side, you've got Devontae Adams again racking up great plays and doing what he does. We've been waiting to see whether Will Fuller is going to be traded to the Packers. I think that would just open the playbook up so much for this team if they could do that.
It's not what they need, though, is it? Quite frankly, they could do with someone to stuff up the run. That is what they need.
Yeah.
But I think offensively they're fine. It would be nice. I mean, but I think as well. I think even Aaron Rodgers would be surprised if they gave him a decent wide out.
Well, the latest on the Will Fuller move is that the Packers wanted Houston to pick up some of the money that Will Fuller's getting paid, and Houston, who have got a recent history of terrible trades, have gone, no, we're good with bad trades. We'd rather make a good trade, and I think quite rightly have said no. There are still some defensive linemen that are available just to pick up. Like we talked about Snacks Harrison on Sunday night when we were watching this game. He's still available. Dontari Poe, Marcel Darius, Tim Jernigan. These aren't great players, but
run stuffers.
They're run stuffers, and that's what the Packers need. Because Dalvin Cook is a great player, but I don't think it takes much for any team to run against the Packers. Like Thursday night, it's Packers against 49ers. That will be really interesting because 49ers are probably the best running scheme team in the league at the moment, but they haven't got anything else. If they can just do to the Packers what they did in the NFC Championship game last year, they could easily beat the Packers just because the Packers can't stop the run at all. They can do anything. There was nothing. There was literally nothing the Packers could do to stop the run. And it's one of the areas they didn't address in the draft, along with wide receiver. They didn't pick up a defensive lineman, and they didn't pick up a middle linebacker. They chose to pick up Aaron Rodgers' replacement.
Even CJ Ham got 2 yards. Paul, just saying.
I've always been a big fan of shoving in the ham.
We should point out that AJ Dillon and Jamal Williams might both be unavailable this week because they've been put on the COVID list, aren't they?
Yeah.
And there's no guaranteeing that Aaron Jones comes back.
No.
Which means the Packers wouldn't have a run game.
No, literally they wouldn't have a run game.
I can't remember who the options are, but I think they've taken 15 snaps in the NFL between them.
Is it you and me?
I mean, it's not.
Tyler Irvin and Patrick Taylor Jr. I think are next on the depth chart.
Oh, wow.
Eddie Lacy's just sat at home feasting out.
Cornelius Anderson is by his phone.
Cortrell Javon Anderson retired in 2020, and that's the worst thing that's happened this year.
That's when you knew this year was going to be a bad one.
I could take COVID-19. I could take, having to work from home, all the political discourse, but not CJ.
just give us CJ.
Just come back. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, luckily for the Packers, they do have Devontae Adams, who has the most touchdowns since 2016. But yeah, God, it's the running game this weekend could be an absolute shit show. Quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, as well, I think he's well out in front, Devontae Adams over anyone in that time period. I think the next is Mike Evans and Tyreek Hill. I think are one, but I think it's 7 less. Devontae Adams is a stud. But that's not a surprise. Should we move on? Because I don't think there's much to really go on for this one. So, Lions 21, Colts 41. The Colts.
Was mauling, basically.
It was fun to watch it with Jim, who each time the running back went in for a touchdown, the first question was, "Is that tape?" No, it's Wilkins. It's Wilkins.
It's just painful. Like Jordan Wilkins had 89 yards and a touchdown. Naeem Hines had 3 receptions, 54 yards and 2 touchdowns. Not to mention a pretty impressive celebratory flip afterwards. Jordan Taylor's been a big disappointment in recent weeks. He had 11 carries for 22 yards. So it's not like they didn't give him a chance. And it's not like this offensive line isn't good. Like, I'm a little bit worried about him, to be honest with you. He looked the business to start off the season, and he's regressed a fair bit. On the flip side, DeAndre Swift, who I left on my fantasy bench, 6 carries for 1 yard.
I had him.
Doing worse. The Lions didn't do a lot with the run game, to be fair, though, did they?
No, and Jones in the receiving was good, but they missed Golladay, don't they?
As soon as Golladay went out, it was all over for this team, and it looks like he could be going on to IR with a hip injury. They haven't actually ruled him out long term, but they're already saying he's not going to play week 9. And for them to say that already makes you think this is at least a 3-week IR deal, which kills my fantasy team because he's been great since he's been back. We should note future Hall of Famer Philip Rivers, now 6th all-time in NFL history career passing yards, behind Breeze, Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and Dan Marino. Just saying, it's an esteemed company. I'm looking at Paul's
what do every single one of those players that you mentioned have?
No.
A lot of passing yards?
Yeah, a lot of passing
yards. Conference championship win.
Yeah.
Every single one of them has won their conference. Philip Rivers has won the 2017 Week 17 AFC Defensive Player of the Week. And it's offensive to include him in that company. That's all I'll say.
There's only one way to find out. Fine. Right. Marvin Jones is going to have to step up big in Golladay's absence. I don't think the Lions can rely on the run game at all. Adrian Peterson had 7 yards on 5 rushes. Swift did nothing at all. All of a sudden, they've gone from looking really competitive again with Golladay back to, no, they're a bit of a one-dimensional team. Stafford needs someone good to throw to. And that it'll either be Marvin Jones or it won't work. And he does go through streaks where he's really good. But
he needs another good receiver playing alongside him for him to be good, though. He's not a Calvin Johnson or Julio Jones who can just do it by himself. He's not a number 1 receiver. He's a number 2 receiver.
Well, Marvin Hall was amazing. 4 receptions, 113 yards. It's just he's Marvin Hall.
Exactly.
He's not. You can't say he's going to attract all the attention every week. Open up space anywhere else.
There's not going to be a defensive coordinator to be kept up at night trying to figure out how they're going to stop Marvin Hall.
The Marvin Hall and Marvin Jones show.
Yeah.
He's not going to keep many people away. Kerryon Johnson should get a nod for scoring a touchdown this week on his 2 receptions. Has disappeared off the face of the earth in this Lions team.
Why is he not? Why are they not running him at least? Jamal Agnew had a running attempt. He actually got 11 yards. But Adrian Peterson, DeAndre Swift, and Kerryon Johnson should be a decent running back stable. You should be getting a lot more than 29 yards total rushing from those 3 rushes alone. But
You know, Johnson, it's not like he hasn't been fit. He's played in all the games this season.
Yeah.
He had 25 rushing attempts for 80 yards. I don't get it. He was like their lead running back. And all of a sudden, nothing. And I can't get on board with it. I think he's such a talented player. So they must see something we don't.
Yeah, I think they've totally lost confidence in him. If they had confidence in Kerryon Johnson, they wouldn't have signed Adrian Peterson. Because if you've got Johnson and you've got DeAndre Swift, and you've got kind of a Jamal Agnew or someone else there just as a backup, you don't go out and sign Adrian Peterson.
True.
Yeah. Well,
before we move on, Darius Leonard in this game again looked like he's back to form. He had a sack, 2 tackles for loss, and just looked like an amazing player again.
I'm sorry, you went quiet for a second there. He looks like a what player again?
Amazing player.
All right, okay, just checking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, he really did. But yeah, not much more to say on that one. So Bears 23, Saints 26.
Can I just say what the worst thing about this game was?
I know what you're going to say.
And any American listeners, you'll be okay. This didn't affect you. The worst thing about this game was it was a highly competitive game, and just as it was going to overtime, Sky Sports decided to show the top one, the 100 goals from Ian Wright, rather than carrying on showing Red Zone and carrying on and showing the highlights. So at least the highlights of this game, you switch it over, and Neil Reynolds is banging on about how bad the 49ers are. Sort it out, Sky Sports. That was not on. I was getting pissed off about that, and you might have cut out there again, Mike.
It did. I didn't quite hear
Ian Wright's 100 best goals because I want to watch that. That's a great show.
You're the only person who want to watch that at midnight on a Monday morning, though.
It's Ian Wright's birthday.
I thought it's a perfect opportunity to go to bed rather than listen to Neil bloody Reynolds.
I wanted to listen to. I wanted to see who wins, and if the Bears won, I'd be sending text messages to Gary all night. But they didn't win.
No, they didn't win, and sadly, Gary's prophecy came true. Basically, the defense played really well again, and the offense just can't get it going. David Montgomery, I just don't get it. I mean, 105 scrimmage yards is fine, but he's getting all the work and just nothing, not enough from it. It's crazy. It's just...
I would disagree with that. I think there was some odd play calling on one of their touchdowns. They eventually scored, but they decided to run it twice when. And the Saints' defense and defensive line is good. Montgomery had 4.2 yards average carry, which is decent for a running back. Like I said, I've said this week in, week out. Anyone getting over 4 yards a carry as a running back is doing a good job. That should be the benchmark. The offensive line for the Bears is bad. Like, it's not good, and that doesn't help. The quarterback isn't good. The whole offense is pretty poor. The defense is still really good. Like they apart from a few decent plays by Alvin Kamara, I don't think the Saints really had all that much. And I think the Bears, towards the end of the game, the Bears were definitely the better team. Going into overtime, I thought they were going to win it.
Same as. Yeah, I mean, apparently Thomas isn't going to be traded. We
can't be now. We're past the deadline. He's still there.
But I mean, without him, they are such. Luckily, like Kamara is the most exciting running back since like Le'Veon Bell and his pomp. But
Kamara is king. So he joined 2 other players as the only running backs with 50 or more receptions in each of their first 4 seasons. You want to have a guess at who these 2 stunning running backs are to join Alvin Kamara?
Dickerson.
No.
Oh, no.
Silence on a podcast.
McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And Matt Forte.
Of course.
He was a decent player.
He was good back in the day.
And also, here's one last, because I'm on the Alvin Kamara train because it's all I've got in fantasy. He's the first Saints player with 100 or more scrimmage yards in 6 straight games since who in 2003?
Saints
Sorry.
Never in a million years will he get this, because I had to go and look him up and then remembered who he was.
I was going to say Reggie Bush, but it's not Reggie Bush then, is it?
Deuce McAllister. What a great name.
Deuce McAllister.
Yeah, so look,
after this, I'm going to drop a deuce. He
is taking the pressure off Breeze, and that's all you need to do. Breeze will put teams apart, and Kamara will just finish him off. And this team is just doing enough.
It's interesting because after I drop my deuce, I'm going to need some Breeze in the room as well.
Statement on this podcast.
Anyway,
I think talk about the Breeze falling off a cliff has abated slightly because they've now found a way of working around it, and Alvin Kamara is that way. So as long as he stays fit, this team is right in Super Bowl contention for me.
Yeah, I think so.
No.
On the other side of the ball, I did moan about the Bears' offense, but Allen Robinson, I think his contract is up at the end of this year.
Yeah.
He needs to go to a good team. He's the quarterbacks that are thrown to Allen Robinson in his career: Brian Walters, Chad Henne, Chase Daniel, Mitchell Trubisky, Blake Bortles, and Nick Foles.
Oof.
And it's not exactly a who's who of the quarterback world. Yes, it includes a Super Bowl MVP, but yeah, if he goes somewhere decent with a decent quarterback thrown to him, maybe the Packers could use another wide receiver. He will put up some big numbers because he was awesome on Sunday.
Yeah, he was. He's a good player. I like Anthony Miller as well. I think both of them are really good receivers. It's just they're on a team that doesn't work offensively.
Mm-hmm. No. Should we mention Javon Wims?
Nah.
Bloke's
a dick. Who punches someone in the helmet?
Yeah.
What a tick.
It was the punch and then the step away to see, did that take an effect?
It was the fact that it seemingly came out of nowhere. It was like, literally, the play was over. He wasn't even anywhere near him. He just walked over to him and started hitting him.
He's been suspended for 2 games, hasn't he?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
they'll miss his 9 yards.
What's that?
Yeah, didn't he? The Saints player stuck his finger in a better player's eye, and at least he knew his job. His job was to take the suspension from the better player. But yeah, it's it just made me laugh.
Another moment of madness in the NFL.
Thursday night, Panthers 17, Falcons 25. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see much of this game.
No, I saw it all, apart from the last minute or so when after Bridgewater threw an interception. It was a wholly uneventful game. I think if the Falcons had shown this much kind of defensive prowess in the first half of the season, they might not be 2-6, and Dan Quinn might have a job because they played pretty decently on the defense side of the ball. I don't think Bridgewater was terrible. I don't think he was brilliant. I could say that for a lot of the players on the Panthers offense. I think they all played relatively okay. They just weren't able to beat what turned out to be a decent Falcons defensive play. Julio Jones was, we talk about Dalvin Cook having a good game. Julio Jones, 7 receptions, 137 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, but was literally everywhere on the pitch. Like the Panthers couldn't stop him. So yeah, I mean, it was a good, fun game. It was back and forth, and then eventually, it was an interception by Bridgewater right at the end that kind of threw it. There was a pretty nasty hit on Bridgewater. He went out for a period of the game, and PJ Walker came in and had one completion for 4 attempts until they decided that he was bad, and Bridgewater wasn't that bad, badly injured, so we better get him back onto the field.
Does it matter that Julio doesn't score touchdowns?
No, it doesn't.
No. I think it helps.
It helps.
29 games with 100 yards and no touchdowns. And the next closest player only has 22 games.
A lot of that was down to Steve Sarkisian being the offensive coordinator a few years back.
Every year we've debated this. I haven't heard it come up this year. I wonder if in the long run it will tarnish his reputation when compared to players like Megatron.
No, and I'll bring you Philip Rivers into this conversation, right? So all that matters apparently is the amount of yards you get. So the total number of yards will mean that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I don't think anyone's debating that Julio and Philip Rivers are both going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would agree.
In your face. Neither of them have won anything, though. I'll give you that.
Julio Jones has won a conference
Julio's
championship.
won a conference championship, unlike Philip Rivers.
But the conference championship doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means you get to a
Super Bowl.
But that doesn't mean anything unless you win it.
Yeah, but you were trying to tell me that Eli should, Rivers deserves to go out above Eli, and Eli's won too.
And been the best player in both of them.
I didn't say he should go in instead of Eli.
We've had arguments where
I argued that Rivers is a better player.
But it's an argument we could have every week. But
and we will.
Probably, yeah.
Any news on Ridley? Because he went out injured, and that would be a big loss for them. Calvin Ridley went out of the game injured.
I've not seen anything.
His status is declared as active, so I presume he is okay. So it was a mid foot sprain. Be back.
For Julio as well, if he's not scoring, if he's getting chunk yards, it's fine because Calvin Ridley gets touchdowns. And
does.
There's an as a total offense, I think they're fine. It's just it's nice to see the defense turn up.
Yep.
And Panthers just sort of where we expected them to be.
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, they're in the rebuild. So I think they're probably further along that rebuild than they expected to be. So I don't think I'd be too bothered by this.
Yeah. And now the noise of the NFC East trash bag is opened. And actually, a closer game than a lot of people assumed. 23-25 as the Giants lose to the Bucks. And unfortunately, it's.
I'm going to
sound like a broken record, but our defense is sneakily good. But the issue is the guy under center.
Well,
no.
I thought he had some of his best games.
Has his world-class running back. He has a load of 2 and 3 options at wide receiver. The tight end is phenomenally disappointing, and the coach is still getting his system into place. It's not all. Danny Dimes played fine.
I thought he had a good game, and I'm not a Daniel Jones fan. I do think he should be replaced, but I do think he played pretty well on last night.
Surely the issue in this game, and the thing you should be angriest about is
the play, the officials. Yeah.
That's an atrocious no call.
Yeah, that was like, okay, Antoine Winfield Jr. has had a great season so far, and he probably is favourite to be Defensive Rookie of the Year. But that was a horrible penalty. He was not looking at the ball. There was clear contact, knocked the guy over. And there was a similar penalty the other way previously in the game that was given. So I guess
can't see why it wasn't given. I don't understand.
I don't understand because he wasn't even like. We had an argument on. There was another dubious non-call on Sunday which we watched, and then we watched the replay. And the guy didn't make contact, but we talked about more that he wasn't even looking at the ball, and that's the key thing, isn't it? In terms of pass interference, is that players should be looking for the ball. If they make contact and they're looking for the ball and they're making an attempt to go for the ball, that's fair enough. That's fair game. But if they're not looking for the ball to come over their shoulder and either intercept or kind of disrupt the pass, if they're just looking at the player and they take the player out and there's contact, that's a penalty. And I think that like I said, there was one called early in the game. That inconsistency is what winds coaches up, because they're like, if it's given on one side and not the other side, it's like, well, are you favouring Tom Brady again? Because it was another one where Brady lobbed the ball in the air pretty high, pretty long, and the ball kind of the play then went to the red zone for the Buccaneers. So it was a terrible call, right? And that robbed the Giants of a potential draw, or at least a shot in overtime at getting one on the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
I think your team's unlucky rather than rubbish.
I'm not saying we're rubbish. And actually,
I'm saying we're rubbish. It's something to take heart from, but we're a rubbish team. Give us time. There are some really encouraging signs. There's some great pieces, but
I'm
Joe
not
Judge
sure.
needs to be given time to put those pieces to work.
Yeah, I'm not sure that swapping the quarterback is the answer. I'm not saying that it's not going to help, but what have you got around him? Like he looks better with Sterling Shepard on the field. As soon as Sterling Shepard is on the field, Daniel Jones wants to throw the ball to him, and he's a really good receiver. But the O-line isn't good, and Evan Ingram is just frustrating he's got every talent there. It's a bit like Ebron at the Lions. Like all the talent is there, but the production is just not. It's just not happening enough. And losing Saquon again is just a disaster for a player like Daniel Jones. You need that on the field. So I can't judge Jones at all. I don't think it's fair to do that. Passionately defending your quarterback for you. Devin White, 5 sacks in 3 games after 2.5 sacks in the previous 18 career games. That is brilliant production from a player who needed to take the step forward, and that is why the Buccaneers defense is so good, because everybody has stepped forward and they've got Tom Brady. So the Giants done well just to be in this game. Take heart from that. That's great. But
and in a copy me league as well, we have shown that it's quite possible to confuse Tom Brady now. Yeah. He's still a 43-year-old man.
It's quite easy to confuse at that age. Just ask him how many downs there are to be played, and turns out he doesn't always know.
But I think for future, there's stuff there. It is going to be a painful season for us.
But also, the division's such a dumpster fire that we win 2 games and we're in the playoffs. Yay!
The only problem there is winning those 2 games.
We've still got to play the Cowboys, so there's one.
But I hope you win that game.
But
Speaking of which,
shall we move on to the bottom of the dumpster fire? It's Eagles.
Oh, hang on. We all know, sorry, but one thing on the Bucs, they've activated Antonio Brown from the reserve suspended list. As if we didn't know that was going to come.
And he'll be back off there in 3 weeks when he's upset everybody.
I hope so.
If not,
I reckon he's going to be brilliant.
It'll be 8 weeks before he's then just in jail. So
I'm going to be the counter view on this. I think he's going to be brilliant.
I'm with you on Paul. He's going to had an amazing season. He's going to be the missing piece which makes the Bucs unbeatable. They're going to win a Super Bowl, and then at the Super Bowl party, he's going to get arrested for something he did in a hotel beforehand.
Yes,
possibly. You never know with him. I didn't want to see him back, but he's back.
No, there we are.
Eagles 23. Cowboys 9. And
Dallas.
Good news for the Cowboys. Andy Dalton's on the COVID list, so he's not back this week. Which actually is probably good news for Andy Dalton, because I think it's the Steelers this week, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
So
he avoids a pummeling.
It's a choice between Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert, whatever his name is, Gilbert Garrett, that fella, and Cooper Rush, who they're bringing up off the practice squad, who backed up Dak for the last 3 years and threw 3 passes in that time. They might as well have 3 of them, take them in one at a time.
Well, they've said Ben DiNucci isn't going to be playing on Saturday, haven't they? On Sunday. And it's unfair on the kid, isn't it? Look, he's a rookie. He's not had any. He's not had any practice. He's not a first-round rookie. I think he was. Was he undrafted?
He was a 7th
round, so not far off.
Yeah.
He's playing against an offensive line which is poor.
And he's shit.
And he's Tom Brady was a 6th-round draft pick, but he was good. But he's shit, so don't ask him to throw the ball 40 times.
No.
Yeah, and as well, he's not getting any help from anywhere, is he?
He's not, is he? Zeke Elliott's been terrible this year, and he had another just less than average game where he got 3.3 yards per carry. We said 4. I've said 4 is the benchmark, and he's not getting there. And the defense is just bad, and all the Eagles really had to do as bad as they've been this year, all they really had to do was just turn up and play an average game, and that's pretty much what Carson Wentz and the Eagles did.
What do we? How is it that they didn't destroy this Cowboys team?
Because they're not very good either.
Yeah. That's a huge concern. So I said to John, I'd got my favourite fact of the week, and it concerns this game. And by far and away, I think this is my favourite fact of the week. It means nothing in the long run, but Carson Wentz became the third starting quarterback since at least 1992 to win a game despite having 2 or more interceptions and 2 or more lost fumbles, whilst generating fewer than 150 total yards. He had 123 passing yards, 17 rushing yards. Any idea who the other 2 quarterbacks who are in this club? So 2 or more interceptions, 2 or more lost fumbles, and fewer than 150 yards in a game.
Bortles?
No, not Bortles. One was 2006 and one was 2007.
Were they Lions quarterbacks in 2006?
No, they were not.
2000.
One was a Bears quarterback and one was a Giants quarterback.
Jay
Grossman?
Grossman, yes.
Rex Grossman, 2006 Bears. Won the NFC Championship more than Philip Rivers, just saying.
Yeah. One was a Giants quarterback.
2007 Giants quarterback.
Yeah.
Eli Manning.
Yeah. And both of those players went to the Super Bowl that season.
Yeah.
By playing inept football because Eli isn't that good. I'm just saying. So all I'm saying is the Eagles, if you go by that metric, are actually on their way to something really good in the postseason. But
no, they're not.
The bigger point there is that Wentz is playing badly and they're still managing to win because the division is so awful that... every week that goes by, the tie they took in week 2 or 3, whenever it was, looks cleverer and cleverer because they're just that bit further ahead of everybody else.
I do not doubt that the Eagles will probably go to the playoffs. Like they had a tie with the Bengals. They beat the 49ers, and that was probably the one highlight. And they've beaten the Giants and they've beaten the Cowboys. That's not... And they're playing the Giants again this week, so they'll probably get another win this week. No offense, guys. Then they're playing the Browns, the Seahawks, the Packers, the Saints, the Cardinals, and they end with the Cowboys and the football team, the last 2 games. They're not getting another win. Sorry?
What football team?
The football team.
Oh, the football team.
They're not getting another win until they play, after the Giants, until they play the Cowboys again. They're going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight. And it'll still be enough for them to get into playoffs, and then they'll lose in the playoffs.
But here's the thing, though. When it comes to the playoffs, they'll have won the conference, so that they'll have
a home game. Yeah,
a home game. Who wants to play in Philadelphia in January?
No
one. I mean, remember the Bears that year? You know, the year the Bears were good, and the double doink.
Yeah.
The Eagles are just a sort of team you don't want to face in the playoffs. They're capable of just taking a scalp because
they are.
Because they have good players, and if
when they're fit,
if they can get them all together for an hour, then it'll be fine.
Has Alshon Jeffrey played this season yet?
I don't think so.
No, but for them, Rager was back because he scored a touchdown. And
yep.
Are we going to see Jalen Hurts?
We did see Jalen Hurts. He played the other night.
But are we going to see a bigger role? Because I mean, the quarterback room, it's either it hurts or watching it hurts.
Well, do you know what the thing is? He is definitely not ready to start in the NFL, and you do not want to undermine Carson Wentz, who week to week is up and down in the same game, like almost Bortles levels up and down in the same game. So you don't want to undermine that because there's a good chance that Wentz will come right again.
I still like Wentz. I think he's still a good quarterback. He is. That offensive line is terrible. He hasn't got quality at wide receiver. His best receiver, Zach Ertz, is injured and potentially out for a good period of time. Dallas Goedert's all right. He hasn't got a very good running game. What else do you want the guy to do?
We compare Dalton to Dak, and actually what we should be doing is comparing Dalton to Wentz. because Wentz has a worse line. He has a worse offensive option. He's got a worse running back. Let's compare those two to see who's better. Because right now, that's the comparison. Because Dak is so much better than both of them. But
we compare Wentz. We compare Wentz with Goff just because they're both taking it in the same draft. But again, Goff has got the offensive line isn't as good as it was, but he's got an all right offensive line. He's got good wide receivers. He's got a good running back, or two good running backs if Cam Akers makes it work. And on the other side of the ball, the Rams' defense it's good as well, but they're still losing. I would still take Carson Wentz over Goff. Like if you gave me Carson Wentz in San Francisco, I would be more than happy with that.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but you've already got an injured quarterback. Why would you want another one?
But even that, he's been fit all this year when he's playing possibly on the worst team he's ever played on.
Yeah. He's straight a season straight where he wasn't injured apart from a dirty hit. He's doing all right this year. Griffey's completely right. It's Bortles levels, just that the highs are higher, but the lows are lower.
Yeah.
It's Bortles. It's bizarre. And I still like him. And I think if you put him in pretty much most other teams because for the Eagles, there's no point saying it because they're never going to be all fit together anyway.
Nah.
But I think he's good. He is. It's not about coming good. He is good. It's just can they get around him to help him? And at the moment, I don't know, but. The Eagles are sort of sneaky team that when they're in the playoffs, you just never know.
He's on course to be sacked 64 times this year. He's on 32 sacks currently.
I mean, yeah,
that's and he's not getting injured. He has had injury bugs in the past. I won't deny that. But he's had one really. That's your point, John. Yeah, he had that one season where he was playing MVP level and he got knocked out of the season. Yeah. And then last year in the playoffs, that dirty hit knocked him out. And it was a dirty hit, Griff. I don't care
when he pussied out.
The year before, I mean, the injuries he's had are fucking atrocious. It's an ACL. He still threw a touchdown for an ACL, by the way, and a broken back. When he's out, he is. It's not like my foot hurts. It's because his back's broken and he's got a torn ACL. He's sturdier than people give him credit for. But that is week 8 gone, done. Right. It's in the book.
Done.
So let's
all
look
right,
ahead.
So you're a fan of Carson Wentz. We get it. All right. Chill out, Jesus.
Move on. God.
Gary has sent me his lock for the week, and I'm not gonna lie, it's both expected and not much of a shout, but he's gone for the Titans over the Bears.
I'm getting in early then. I'm taking Colts to beat the Ravens and put the Ravens on the slide for another week.
Ooh. Well, given the COVID injury news for the Ravens, that's not a bad shout.
Yeah. Paul.
I can't take the steep.
Paul and Jim, you want to take? I mean,
I was going to say I
can't take the
Steelers over the Cowboys. Am I allowed to take the Pats over the Jets?
No.
I won't though.
My lock of the week is the quarterback for the Broncos, Drew. No, but seriously, his team is going to beat the Broncos. Are going to beat the Falcons.
There's some good there's good games this week.
Come on, somebody's got to take the Bucks Saints game and pick.
Oh yeah.
All right,
I'm taking the Bucks.
Oh, you're doing it. Good. I haven't done mine yet. I'm going to go Vikings over Lions.
Ooh.
As well.
Middle of the road, boring.
I was very nearly going to go for Lions over Vikings.
You can go against me if you want. You can change your lock, surely.
No, I've gone for the poor.
That's a terrible AFC South matchup, isn't it? The 1-6 Texans versus the 1-6 Jags. And awful game. Oh, and the Jags are starting Jake Luton by the looks of things because Gardner Minshew is going to miss the game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The infamous Jake Luton
mania
for this week.
It could well be. Well, he's not. He's been told he's not guaranteed his starting role back.
we're replacing Minshew Mania with Luton Lunacy. Nothing else works, 49ers Packers could be
Luton
a lot of fun.
letdown.
Yeah. And Bills Seahawks. I'd like to see Josh Allen come
I
back.
don't think this Bills
Chargers
defense
Raiders
is going to show up. I
No.
think I mow the Bills down in that game.
But on the flip side, I think the Bills or the Seahawks defense is still terrible.
Oh yeah.
So the Bill, I mean, it could be a right out shootout.
it could be a lot of fun this one.
So it'll be 12-10 to the Seahawks in that game.
Yes, exactly.
And Washington against the Giants in a game of who could care less.
One win closer to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think Eagles on a bye, so literally they could go just behind the Eagles because the Eagles have a draw. But we'll leave it there, and we'll see you next week. But until then, it's a goodbye from us. See you soon.
Ta-da.
All right.
Bye.